Say Polo as soon as I say Marco. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Marco.
Polo.
That's a little too delayed. One more time. Marco.
Polo.
That was even more. Marco.
Polo.
Marco.
Polo.
Marco.
Polo.
Marco.
Polo.
Marco.
Polo.
All right. I think we're probably in sync.
Yeah, I'm
How's
sure
it going?
that's fine. Not too bad. Super Tuesday.
Super Tuesday.
It's super.
It's the Super Tuesday.
Super.
Connecticut, which we are both from, which we are both registered in. The deadline to register in Connecticut is sometime in April. So I'm going to take care of that because I'm a non-affiliated voter at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
What do you mean?
Are you registered?
Yeah, I'm registered independent.
Ah.
Yeah, I don't get any phone calls from people wanting to,
Does that happen when you? I've only ever been registered. So you might be a non-affiliated voter, which is the actual classification. Independent is a specific thing you have to register as. But if you register as nothing, it's a non-affiliated voter. In Connecticut.
Oh, then I don't know. Then I don't know.
At least
I
that
believe
was
I'm independent.
True at the time.
I believe I'm independent.
So, what are you up to?
I'm gonna get a beer.
Who's that?
Elizabeth Warren.
I heard you saying that before.
Yeah.
And I thought you were doing Brett Kavanaugh. Did you hear him during the hearings? Where he was talking. They were talking about his alcohol use when, I don't know, it was probably college, and his response was, "I like beer. I drink beer. Do you drink beer?"
No.
Like that. I like beer.
I did not hear that.
He adds a glottal stop to it.
Beer. Beer.
I like beer.
Beer.
Do you like beer? I drink beer.
This is from, she did like a live Facebook or Instagram, something like that. It was a live stream. And she was like, it all seemed very, like, premeditated. But at one point she was like, I'm going to get a beer. And she walks over to the refrigerator.
It's probably some staffer who told her,
it's like, you should drink a
beer or having it on camera or in some professional context will make you edgy and relatable.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, one beer. Have you met America? What are you drinking?
This is an IPA, which I don't usually go for.
Can you even
I'm more
drink
the wine
IPAs
guy.
with your IBS?
Yeah, that's the problem. We're gonna find out if this if something is overly hoppy, like IPAs, but it's usually the very, very intensely bitter ones that seem to bother me.
IBS, Crohn's disease. I don't know about IBD, but perhaps also the case. It's very much a trial by fire condition.
Yeah,
because you go on message boards or you look into what they say is the foods to have and what not to have, and people are all over the place with what they say. This specific rice changed my life, and I eat it all the time, or something. And there are things that I can tolerate very well that are regularly in my diet that I know I've read people with Crohn's disease could never tolerate. They think of it as like heresy, or you must not actually have Crohn's. So I don't know. It seems to be all over the place.
I'm not gonna be drinking much more of this.
But speaking of drinks, I did want to share, because we want to always incorporate food or drink into our show, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to mention, you mentioned you wanted to talk about that lasagna that you made. And that also brings me to the cocktail that I invented that you named. But It's a pretty good cocktail. We drank a generous amount of those.
We did. We
So
did.
that has to stand for something. But talk about the lasagna.
So the lasagna was kind of a spur of the moment thing. We decided we wanted to make it.
Yeah.
We had a couch surfer in who.
This is okay for back up a little bit. This is when we were both living in Albuquerque,
Yes.
and you were visiting. You were
Mm-hmm.
visiting for a couple of weeks, and we had an 11-day shoot out in the desert in Arizona for Walking the Healing Path.
Yes. Yes,
Triello.org
indeed.
/WHP. I'll put the link in the description.
Mm.
But we had a couch surfer while you were in town, and she's also of Southern Italian and Sicilian descent, like the two of us,
Yes.
and doesn't do box pasta. She only makes pasta from scratch, so she made lasagna noodles.
Yeah.
Lasagna noodles. Was that what
Now,
you would say?
no, no, I would never use noodles when referring to any kind of pasta.
That's what
That is
Trader Joe's says on the
blasphemy.
box. Lasagna
Yeah,
noodles.
that is blasphemy.
And Trader Joe's authentic Italian gravy.
Oh my God, no. No.
Okay, so the lasagna recipe.
Uh,
Lasagna alla bolognese.
yeah, I mean, although technically I suppose this would be lasagna alla ferrarese from Ferrara, but I mean, same basic principle. This is not the ricotta meat-laden Americanized lasagna that you would get on Arthur
I'm
Avenue or from a
yeah.
box.
I'm not a fan
Um,
of ricotta.
I, mm, I mean, I like it in certain contexts. It doesn't like me, the
Mhm.
IBS. Um, but also, like, having a layer of just meat, and then another layer of ricotta, and then another layer of sauce, and then a layer of, like, sausage. It's like, that is overkill.
Yeah.
It is gratuitous. And I have, to this day, yet to have one that tops the traditional style that you would find in Bologna. In Bologna, what you would do is layer the pasta with ragu, so a meat-based sauce, sometimes called bolognese,
Yep.
um, which is a combination of beef, veal, pork, mirepoix, so carrot, onion, celery, very fine. And there's a little bit of dispute over this about adding tomato. I do add a touch of tomato. I do like the tomato in there. And then a white sauce, a bechamel, which is effectively a combination of butter, flour, milk, and a tiny bit of nutmeg. And so you layer that, a layer of pasta, a layer of ragu, a layer of bechamel, and then Parmigiano Reggiano, grated Parmigiano. Um, it is unbelievable, like how good, like you cannot imagine how good a good lasagna made well like that is. When we made it, the pasta was a little thick for my liking. I like it when it's very, very thin.
Hmm.
And she rolled it out, I think, using a wine bottle as a rolling pin.
We just didn't have all the right
Yeah, we didn't have.
accoutrements.
Yeah, it was. We were pressed for equipment.
Yeah, I mean it's
Um,
also just kind of fun couch surfing hang.
yeah, but I think you
So
took a video of us of the process.
I did, yeah. I could put that in
Yeah,
the show notes, and we should also put the
yeah.
recipe in the show notes.
Mm.
And I wanted to come up with a dessert cocktail that could go well with it after the lasagna. Um,
So
so
the
I was,
abbronzato.
oh well, yeah. So I was thinking about something like a White Russian, but how can we Italianize the White Russian? And I thought about what those ingredients were. Now, I thought vodka should still go in because anytime you want to experiment with mixing other flavors together, as I think you had already mentioned during that time, vodka is it's a clean enough or neutral enough liquor of the 80 proof range liquors that you could choose that it wouldn't contribute or disrupt anything else that's being mixed in,
Yeah,
right?
it's neutral. It's just to add alcohol to a
Right. You
beverage,
just
like
exactly.
a
You
gin
want you
martini.
want
You're
that
adding
kick.
a
You
little
want to
bit of
get that
vodka.
buzz, but you don't want to create something that's going to dampen, diffuse, or disrupt the 3Ds.
Or clash with the other flavors.
Exactly. That's another word to use.
Disrupt.
So this was a shot of espresso that I make, which is a variation on Klingon coffee, a Raktagino.
Okay, you're gonna have to explain that.
Okay, so there are actual recipes for beverages in the Star Trek world. Also a perfect time to mention and remind people of the 24th Century palette.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Raktagino should happen in the second season.
Yes, we'll make a spiked Raktagino.
We'll throw a link into 24th Century palette again as well. So the Raktagino is basically a espresso, because Klingons are tough and espresso is more of a bitter, stronger flavor than American coffee. And mixed into the grounds to brew it is cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg.
So then you can use cheap espresso, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, I used Ely espresso, which is pretty decent Arabica espresso.
That's not cheap.
Well, it's not cheap, but actually, if you're looking for already ground espresso for a Bialetti or some other affordable solution to brew espresso at home, Ely is pretty accessible. You can get it at most grocery stores. You can get it at, depending on what part of the country, and if you're in the United States, Stop and Shop.
You have an
Smith's,
espresso
Safeway.
pod, don't you?
I have an espresso pod. I haven't tried my custom espresso brew in an espresso machine with a reusable pod, but I could give that a try. Once I've fine-tuned that reusable pod, there's got to be a way, because there's a market for them, so there's got to be a way to do it right. So anyway, you brew that unique shot of espresso, so that's one ingredient. Mm-hmm. You add in a shot of Frangelico, which is a hazelnut liqueur. Mm-hmm. A shot of vodka to give it a kick, because the hazelnut liqueur is not very strong in terms of its alcoholic content.
30
it's
proof.
It's like wine.
It's very low. It's very low.
It's close to wine, but you don't have a shot of wine. It's not really. So you put all of that in. Now, what's the right term? Is it a shaker? Is it just called a shaker? The actual. The container.
Yeah, a shaker. Mixed, a cocktail shaker. Some people call it a martini shaker, but it's a cocktail shaker. Yeah.
Okay, you put all that in a cocktail shaker with some ice, and then you have a fresh glass with fresh ice cubes.
As opposed to.
I guess if you had mixed it in a glass beforehand or something.
Oh.
You mix all this. Okay. You mix all this into a shaker, right? With ice, and then you pour it over fresh ice, and it tastes like. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed an ingredient.
Yeah.
That's my bad. Milk or whatever non-dairy alternative you prefer. I've been using oat milk, which works great.
Great in cocktails.
And so having all of this stuff in a shaker, you pour it into a fresh glass with ice, and it tastes like you're drinking Nutella. And the benefit, well, that's the benefit, and the hazard is also that it tastes like you're drinking Nutella. So I'm fairly certain I had 8 with the lasagna. That was a hearty lasagna, so I probably didn't feel all of the alcoholic content, but that's 8 shots of vodka and 8 shots of Frangelico.
Wait, you had it with the lasagna or after?
I had it after the lasagna, so the lasagna was in my system. So
because I don't remember you pairing.
No, this is not a pairing. It's a pairing in the sense that it works well as a dessert cocktail following the lasagna. It's a part of the menu of the evening, but it's not being had with the lasagna. No.
Ew.
So I'll put the Abronzato on the show notes as well. It's a good little cocktail.
Yeah.
I want to do a video for that at some point.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not having this IPA. I'm gonna try something else here, and if I like it, I'll tell you what it is I'm actually drinking. Because right now I don't want to reveal the brand of that IPA.
Gotcha.
A beer.
I wanted to talk about. We're starting this show pretty close to the turn of the decade and in the new year, right?
Mm-hmm.
2020. We didn't really have anything to acknowledge the new year, and I think most of that stuff is pretty silly. But just because I am a filmmaker, just because I am a fan of films, I was reflecting on what movie I kept coming back to in a given year between 2010 and 2019. So I just decided to write up a list. I don't know if you had a chance to write one up, but maybe as I go through mine, you can try to think back to what you remember with each of those years.
Yeah.
Do you have a list?
In fact, hang on. I did not come up with a list, but let me.
Get your IMDb ready.
Yeah. Let me see.
And I'll go ahead and start while you're doing that, so we're not having dead air and clicky clackies of your. What's that typewriter from? What show on Sci-Fi?
Oh, Warehouse 13.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I loved that keyboard.
Is that what you have?
I had to have it. It's similar.
Okay.
The prop they actually use on the show was way more expensive. This one is the entry level model, we'll call it.
Right, but it's sold.
It's
with
the same thing. It looks like, yes,
people who are fans of the show to consume. Yeah, we would put a link to that up in the show notes too.
Yes.
I'm not going to put links up to these movies because most of these movies are pretty big. So I'll get into it. 2010, Inception. That was mine.
Yeah, definitely.
That was certainly a unique movie. It was not like anything I'd personally seen before. It's when I really started to pay attention to Christopher Nolan. I'd already seen both of the Batman films up to that point, and I enjoyed those. But I really was not thinking about him as a technical director the way I would think about someone like Stanley Kubrick until I saw Inception. And then I began to appreciate more of his previous work and became very interested and exciting for whatever he might be making next. And I gave him a pass on
what?
The Dark Knight Rises. Anyway, continue.
Oh.
That's not my 2012 pick.
No. Inception, I think it was so novel and so, like, it was amazing to see a movie that was not a sequel, a prequel, an adaptation. You know, it was something completely new.
To be popular at that
I think
scale.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are plenty of people who beat it up for different reasons, and I think the least valid one is the logic of the machine that induces the shared dreaming state. I think that if you're worried about that detail, then you're not very skilled at consuming story.
Yeah, why would people get caught up at, suspend disbelief?
That's like when people were up in arms about the historic inaccuracy of the movie Troy with Brad Pitt. I think you don't understand what it is you are going to see. You are going to an entertaining engagement, and much like any of this high spectacle work, they're in its best form is still trying to tell a human story through a fantastic package. And Inception did that. I think you shouldn't worry about that dream machine. This is not meant to be The Matrix. It's not meant to be something where the science is completely infused conceptually with the story and the characters. That's why The Matrix, I think much like a film like Arrival, is science fiction. If you remove the science from the story, then the story falls apart. With Inception, they could have done this in another way. That's why everything else about the film is so grounded. The dreams could have been fantastical and absurd and off the wall. They could have had cartoon characters in the dreams, because I've had... My dreams are not anywhere near as grounded as the dreams that they have in Inception. I mean, obviously there's things that they did to fuck with the physics of our perceptions of reality, but it's all rooted in something that we could perceive in reality. Right? But I've had absurd dreams where two-dimensional beings are occupying the same space as me, and by the time I'm even comprehending or perceiving myself, I am already not quite who I am in reality. To a dramatic level. I don't know about your dreams, but my dreams are all over the place.
So I hardly remember my dreams. Only the ones that really stand out.
We should look into that. I wonder if I seem to remember hearing that means you sleep well.
Ah. Well, here's
hoping. You don't remember your dreams. Anyway.
Also from 2010. No. Also from 2010. Here's the thing. Iron Man 2. Not as a great movie, but specifically for Sam Rockwell's performance as the villain.
Oh, yeah.
I was incredibly entertained by that. His whole bit as Justin Hammer was fantastic.
I wish that character came back at some point throughout that franchise.
They totally should have brought him back.
Because he didn't die or anything, right?
No, Sam Rockwell's around. And the character
was... the character. The character.
He just went to jail, I think. Okay, so, why couldn't he have, cut a deal with S.H.I.E.L.D. and, I don't know, gotten out somehow? I don't know.
Yeah, especially...
But, yeah.
I wonder if they would bring him back now that there's a sort of power vacuum in the market with Tony Stark not being around, and...
Yeah.
Pepper Potts is running the company, I would assume.
And she's rescue.
And maybe Hammer is presumptuously thinking he can muscle her out of the market, and he can't because she's an awesome superhero just like Tony was. So, that could be an interesting story, even though I just outlined it. Use it. 2011. Drive for me. That was something I was watching obsessively, and Nick Refn was the first director I got into the way an avid reader gets into an author. I was heavily influenced by Stanley Kubrick at the beginning of my career as a filmmaker, but I didn't get into this obsessive mode where one film would catch fire for me in my mind, and I would need to consume everything. I tried to watch as many of his films as I could. Outside of that, I watched as many interviews as I could. I read as much as I could. I tried to look at what other people have to say about him. And that was the beginning of me consuming films as a comprehensive education. Now, it's after all the stuff I've seen by him, it's my favorite of his films. But that will forever be an important step in my, what's the right word, in my upbringing as a filmmaker, as a student of film. What's your 2011?
Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
That was fun.
That was
a return to form for Mission Impossible as well.
Thoroughly enjoyed that was the fourth film, right? Yeah.
That was...
Four. Yes, Ghost Protocol was 4.
The third one was called 3. Mission Impossible 3. So yeah.
It was just called 3.
It's called 3. 3.
Yeah, 2 and 3.
Which one is it?
Were awful.
Decide. Which ones?
2 and 3 were awful.
I don't remember 3. 2, it's directed by John Woo. So if you can go in understanding that, then you can have a different appreciation for it. It's still not even John Woo's strongest film. But this is the maker of Face Off. And it has that duality, hero versus antagonist, and even the thing they're chasing after is a poison and an antidote.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do you remember it's not a poison and an antidote, it's a disease and the cure.
It's a disease and the cure. Yeah.
Which if you consider, have you heard of this conspiracy theory?
Tell me.
That the coronavirus was manufactured to create a vaccine to generate revenue. because there was this like in Wuhan in 2018 they opened this like bio like to study this lab to study like the most dangerous viruses.
It's an entertaining theory.
It's an entertaining theory. It is the plot of Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah. It's an entertaining theory. I don't know if I don't know.
No,
if
I don't buy into it.
Yeah.
No. But people who are like explaining this theory, it's like you just described the plot of Mission Impossible 2.
Are they aware of that? So there's a follow-up meme of people pointing out that you're describing the plot of Mission Impossible 2.
There has to be now. I mean, I hope
it's probably on 9gag or Reddit.
I haven't been on any of those in a very long time.
2012, Silver Linings Playbook.
I did see that. For me, it would have to be Skyfall.
Skyfall was 2012. Okay, yeah, that was a great film.
Skyfall was like as a film, like not even just like, oh, that's a great James Bond film. No, as a film, I thoroughly found that fantastic. It was fantastic.
Okay,
very well executed.
Let me ask you this: between Skyfall and Casino Royale.
Casino Royale.
Totally
just for what it did to the franchise and just the movie as a whole. Like
Martin Campbell, the director, he also did The Mask of Zorro. Anthony Hopkins, Antonio Banderas.
Ooh.
That was him too.
That was such a good movie. Oh my god. Mask of Zorro. Do you know how many times I watched? That was the only VHS my grandparents, my mom's side.
Yeah.
Nano and Nana. That's
the
only really VHS in English they had.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I watched that incessantly every time I was over there.
It's a great bit of fun. The Casino Royale, the thing I appreciate about it is I love it when big films take big risks. And they were still trying to define a new direction for James Bond. And they had to take the risk that it's going to piss off a lot of people because it's not a procedural follow-up to what's come before in the James Bond franchise.
It doesn't follow the formula. It doesn't follow.
And actually, interesting, Martin Campbell directed Casino Royale. He directed The Mask of Zorro, and he directed GoldenEye.
Martin Campbell directed GoldenEye also?
Best of the Pierce Brosnans, hands down.
Oh, yeah, without question. Without question.
He's great at getting a franchise going, with the exception of Green Lantern, because he also directed that.
Oh, that was disappointing.
So
disappointing.
He did a phenomenal job with those three films, and the thing I love about Casino Royale is big studios taking big risks, and you can tell it's not as though it wasn't polished; it is pristine, right? But creatively, taking chances and taking risks on a new face, a new concept, a new approach to the ethos of James Bond.
Yeah.
And also from a storytelling standpoint, this is not a 3-act story. There's a lot going on. There's a whole nother movie by the time they reach Montenegro. And it doesn't even end there. It still brings us to Venice after that.
Yeah.
It's almost an episodic film.
Yeah.
But it's a tight little 2+ hour range package, which is impressive. I wish more blockbusters took risks like that. And I hope that that's what they'll do with the next James Bond actor, whoever that may be, or 007 if it's not a guy, because I've heard that it might not be a guy, which I'd be interested in seeing. I'm interested to see what they'll do with it.
Barbara Broccoli? Cubby Broccoli's, I think, daughter.
Yeah.
Still has the reins in terms of, like, she keeps a tight lid on what... She is still in creative control. She has to sign off on it, right?
Yeah.
She was asked point blank, like, is a woman ever going to play? She's like, no.
No. Okay.
Then it's not James Bond.
Well, it's up to her.
Get another character. It's not that she doesn't want, like, a female protagonist. It's like, that would not be James Bond.
Yeah.
Because people have asked her many times about, like, Jane Bond or some shit like that. And she's like, no.
Well, her and her brother hold the reins to that, and I think that was smart for them to not relinquish that intellectual property over to Sony, because I like that Sony stood behind Quentin Tarantino when he didn't want to change his film for the Chinese market, but it's still a big studio, so I don't trust that it's always and forever going to have integrity. And that's not a ding against Sony, that's a ding against capitalism. Because I don't think that they have a creative bias. I think just like any other big industry, they have a money bias. So someone might make the virtuous decision to stand by what is creatively the best decision, and then there could be a regime change, and that could all disappear in 2 years. So who knows? So I'm glad that they maintain that control, because there's this continuous through line from their father to explore all the possibilities of what the franchise can do. And I think the beginning of Daniel Craig was them being very thoughtful about going in a different direction while also making it as good of a success as it can be. I don't think it needs to be this high art thing. I think it still needs to be this big, fun adventure thing. I just appreciate that they're willing to take risks in that space. 2013, American Hustle, also David O. Russell, who did Silver Linings Playbook. Did you see that?
I did.
I
did see that.
The cast alone is what makes that such a strong piece.
Yeah. Definitely.
What's your 2013?
Iron Man 3. For as much, actually, no. You know what? It's close. Star Trek Into Darkness.
Okay.
Because I loved what they did. Like, Benedict Cumberbatch was fantastic. I did enjoy him as the villain.
Yeah.
But Iron Man 3, Ben Kingsley made that film. Like, he was the only redeeming part of that film. Of an otherwise horrible film.
It's always been celebrated for its excellence. There's a California
people
theater.
Call me a terrorist. I consider myself a teacher.
I'm a teacher. I consider myself a rare.
Where did that come from?
That's a good question. It's probably something that was inspired by Jim Carrey for us.
Okay.
So, yeah, Iron Man 3, Shane Black. That was a great script. Wait, did he write it or he directed it? Or both?
Oh, I do not know. I closed the window.
He was creatively involved in that, and his contribution was great. 2014.
2014.
You go this time.
That was close. But I'm going to have to give it to Captain America Winter Soldier.
Russo brothers, that was their first big...
It was unbelievable. Like, that was a Marvel film, a superhero film, and a spy film. And it was done beautifully. Like, they executed that beautifully. I really thoroughly enjoyed Winter Soldier. Especially the fight sequences, the choreography there, the knife fight on the overpass between Bucky and Captain America was spectacular.
I don't find most of the Marvel movies rewatchable.
That I will rewatch.
Is an exception.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it stands well on its own.
And I did enjoy... I haven't rewatched it since, however. But when I watched Days of Future Past, X-Men, Days of Future Past, it was the novelty of having the two sets of cast kind of, that interplay. I really enjoyed that.
Right.
But just as an X-Men fan.
Days of Future Past was great too. That was a return to what made the original two so well. Great, rather. 2014 for me is Chef. I watched that movie more times than I care to share. Not because of cinematography or editing or anything on a technical level, but I really love those characters. I like the simplicity of the story, and then also the soul of it. I wish that Jon Favreau would do. I wish he would take a break from a blockbuster. Like, and every other film would be one of these smaller kinds of projects, like Chef. He did Made. That was his other film that he did with. Um, I'm blanking on his name right now. Wedding Crashers, not Owen Wilson.
Vince
He's
Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn, who's now Funkhauser on Curb.
What?
Yeah, have you been catching up with Curb Your Enthusiasm? He
No,
is
I'm on
Marty
season
Funkhauser's
9.
nephew.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
yeah. It's
Um,
This is also my favorite season so far since Max Bialystock. What was that? Season 4, season
I
5?
believe so. I believe
Yeah,
so. It was a while ago.
for Curb Your
Uh,
Enthusiasm. Check it out.
Honorable mention:
Yeah,
The Grand Budapest Hotel.
is that 2014?
That is 2014, and I thoroughly enjoyed that.
That's a great film as well.
I thoroughly enjoyed that.
It's his
It's
most commercial
entertaining. It's
film. It's
funny.
also incredibly consistent with his dedication to excruciating detail with
To
every
being Wes
composition.
Anderson.
Oh my god, yeah. 2015 for me because of it's just a visual feast. Denis Villeneuve, Sicario.
Oh, okay.
It soured with me. I'm not a proponent for accuracies, like historic accuracy, or in the case of
Mm-hmm.
Inception, like I'm not
Scientific
concerned
accuracy.
with expositioning a detail to death just to satisfy the pedantic ticket buyers.
Yeah.
I it's not why we tell stories, and it's not why it's not contributing to your growth as an audience member if the point of art is to be moved in a way that's causing you to reflect and grow and become different than you were before you stepped into the theater. Then worrying about the way the dream machine is made is it's like trying to avoid growing up. Anyway,
Mm.
that's my rant on that. But going back to Sicario, just hearing from individuals who are in the actual world that story is representing and hearing their point of view, I'm not concerned with accuracy 99.99% of the time, but in that instance, it soured my perception of the film a little bit because part of what it's trying to accomplish is this incredibly realistic, immersive state of being on the border and being involved in the political and law enforcement aspects of that existence, and
Mm.
hearing perspectives from both sides that are represented in the film, the real life individuals and what their thoughts are on it kind of soured my perception a little bit. That to say does not mean it has anything to do with the director's skill, the actors' performances, or anything like that. And I'll still enjoy and keep referring back to it just to keep making myself better as a filmmaker, looking at the visual language of that film. It's very impressive. You
Hmm.
saw it, right?
I don't believe so. I
I
think I've
think I
seen
showed
parts
you
of it.
clips.
You showed me clips, yeah, but I have
Yeah.
not seen the whole thing.
Yeah. What's your 2015?
Um, for very particular reason, Star Wars: The Force Awakens,
Mm-hmm.
and I will tell you why. Not because it was all that great, but because because of what it did. Like, it was basically like the first time I watched A New Hope.
uh,
It evoked that kind of like, oh, this is new, but it was able to evoke what I felt with A New Hope. So it was a taste of the familiar while being something new. and that glimmer of hope, that tiny little shard of hope that I felt for the future of the franchise when it was still there before Last Jedi came out, before it was completely destroyed.
And we both agree that Last Jedi and the most recent one...
I haven't seen the most recent one. I have been a diehard... The Rise of Skywalker.
The Rise of Skywalker. Not auspicious follow-ups. Inauspicious follow-ups to Force Awakens.
I've been a diehard Star Wars fan since I saw the very first time. I think I was 7 years old when I saw A New Hope.
Yeah.
I was like home from school. I was sick. My dad put it on. It was unbelievable. By the time I finished, I was actually feeling better. And to this day, if I'm like horribly ill, I will put on A New Hope, and by the time it's over, I usually start feeling better.
For me, that film is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I remember watching that when I was bedridden for a month, and I couldn't get the remote, and the thing was on loop, so I watched it like 5 times a day.
Oh my god. That's a long movie.
It is, and it's the extended version.
Oh.
It's 3+ hours.
Wow.
So,
but yeah, I mean, do you know what I'm getting at with the Force Awakens?
No, I can appreciate that. I've only seen it once all the way through. It was fun. The one thing I will say that I appreciate about what that franchise did, the reinvigorating of the Star Wars franchise, is it brought us Mandalorian, which I think is a great and distinctive contribution to this new effort to restore or bring back Star Wars.
Absolutely.
2016, Arrival.
Oh.
For the reasons I mentioned before, it is pure sci-fi. It's one of the last true sci-fi films I've seen in theaters that was intended for a large-scale audience in a long time. And by sci-fi, I mean if you removed the science or the theoretical science from the story, then the story falls apart. And Arrival is a true sci-fi film, in my opinion. And beautiful. It's just beautifully shot.
Oh yeah, no, it is absolutely.
And my bottom line for filmmaking is, did I feel something? And if the answer is yes, then it is a good film because it successfully manipulated my emotions, right? Because nothing actually happened in my life. I walked into a dark room with a bunch of strangers and a bunch of images flashed on a screen, and I felt something like I was alive. Right? Wow. And it did that. So it's a good movie. It doesn't matter which way I can analyze it. It was a good movie.
Deadpool.
2016, Deadpool. That was a great film. That was a great pivot for the world of comic book movies.
Mm-hmm. It's just because Ryan Reynolds, like he is Deadpool. Like it's so perfect. Like it's great.
And I'm sure it
was so entertaining.
You know The Nerdist? You know The Nerdist?
Yes.
It's a YouTube channel. I think it was him who did a video about this, but comic book movies were reaching a level where they were taking themselves so seriously that you kind of have to take a step back and see how ridiculous this is to have it so dramatic. Joss Whedon did that to a certain extent by adding in some humor with the first Avengers film. But Deadpool really was it had a thesis statement about comic book
those
movies.
Types of films, yeah.
Exactly.
And Captain America Civil War came out the same year.
Yeah.
And that was like
so heavy-handed.
Way heavy,
Yeah.
Way heavy.
Very, very different. 2018?
Or 2017,
excuse me.
Yeah.
For me, it was Get Out.
Get Out? I haven't seen that.
I highly recommend it, especially if you've ever enjoyed Alfred Hitchcock.
Huh.
The visual representations in the film and all the clever and subtle ways that ideas were expressed simultaneously. There are compositions in that film that are saying 3 or 4 things at once. And it's done at such a thoughtful level that you're able to comfortably take it all in. It's really interesting, and there's a lot of debate over what kind of genre this film is, because in a lot of ways it is an abstraction of what an individual in this society's experience truly is. So I remember people saying it's a documentary, right? In that sense, because there are so many people who completely understood what it was trying to talk about. I think on its surface, it's a horror movie, right? Just in terms of how it's marketed and what it's in that regard. And it's a thriller in some ways, and I don't think it's really important ultimately to decide what genre it is. But it's a film that definitely demands rewatching because there's just so much and so many layers to extract from it. Yeah, I recommend it. I'm making that recommendation to you, Ron. I'm not saying, hey, audience who already saw this movie, you should go see this movie because you trust my opinion. No, I'm just saying, if we're having this conversation right now, I would say take some time and watch it.
I'll take a look.
Yeah.
2017 for me was Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok was great too. Yeah. That was Taika Waititi.
So entertaining. Yep. He is one of my favorite people.
I'm ashamed to say that was the first time I saw him work as a director. I didn't get to see What We Do in the Shadows before that.
Oh, and the show. I've watched the first season. The show is
I haven't seen the show yet.
Amazing.
And I haven't seen Jojo Rabbit yet.
Oh, I haven't seen that either.
I've heard that's really, really good, though. So that's on my list. But Ragnarok was fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it.
And there's also such a really solid cast.
Yes, seriously.
Yeah.
2018.
2018. For me, 2018, and so a little background. You and I were under a very specific state of mind when I made you watch my film, the film that I've chosen for 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh man. I know you weren't crazy about it, but I loved it. American Animals.
I mean, it was fine, but like...
You appreciate and understand the statement it's making, right?
Yeah, but I'm not going to watch it again.
I've watched it maybe 10 times
since
2018. And I saw it in theaters.
Avengers Infinity War.
Uh-huh.
I have seen at least like 15 times, I think.
Wow.
I thoroughly enjoy Infinity War. Like, I think I like Infinity War more than I like Endgame.
Endgame is just because it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. But Infinity War is a better film.
It has the greater pressure on it too. Right? Because Endgame was very good because it was impressive because they didn't have to do as great of a job as they did with it. There was this whole existence for the first hour of the film, people living in this depressive state because half the world was gone.
Yeah.
And it's just very bizarre and not what you'd normally see for a big tentpole entertainment piece like it is. And Infinity War had more pressure, though, because if nobody's excited about what's going on, then nobody cares where it's going to end up.
Yeah, true.
So, to its credit, that it had the harder job, and it still offered something really good for the follow-up. American Animals, I appreciate for all the statements it's trying to make, but I really, really love the way that the documentary and the dramatized components of the film were woven together. I thought the acting was really strong. The compositions and the directing overall was fantastic. But it's truly a one of a kind film, and I haven't seen that director's previous film, The Imposter, but now I want to see that. 2019. Go ahead.
Uh, it was tough, but I have to give it to Avengers Endgame. Even though I didn't like it as much as Infinity War, um, I did not enjoy Joker, which I only saw recently, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I did not enjoy Joker as much as Avengers Endgame. I have not seen Rise of Skywalker. I didn't see Aladdin. I saw Toy Story 4, but was completely unimpressed.
I haven't seen it either.
Completely unimpressed. Like, no.
I didn't see the third one either.
Captain Marvel was entertaining, but I still have to give it to Avengers Endgame.
For me, it was The Lighthouse.
I have that. I have to watch it.
Willem Dafoe, Robert Pattinson. I am not a fan of horror movies, and I don't know if this would be considered a horror movie. It certainly was marketed as one.
Huh.
And that director had already done that film The Witch, which was also marketed as a horror movie. I haven't seen it, so I don't really know. But Lighthouse had a very unique visual language. Definitely a challenge for these two actors, Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, to carry the performances for the entirety of the narrative by themselves as they did. But I was completely always in that space. I've never seen anything with Robert Pattinson. To be honest, I've never seen the Twilight films. I've never seen anything else that he's done before. I didn't have a negative opinion. I didn't have an eye roll like opinion because he's a heartthrob and he's in the tabloids Twilight. Or whatever all the time. Or yeah. I'm not worried about that, and I don't bring that into the way I formulate my opinion when I see an actor. But I had no opinion. I had no idea how he worked. Now I'm excited to see him as Batman because of this performance.
Huh.
Which obviously is a completely different film. But yeah. I'm genuinely curious, and I want to give it a chance, which is not something. Which a chance is not something I give much to DC these days. I did not see any of the. I didn't see the Batman movie. I didn't see any. I saw Man of Steel.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get behind. I did see this year Birds of Prey. That was pretty entertaining.
I haven't seen it.
Everybody in that was really great. The writing was really clever, and that was a surprise for me. I thought that was going to be so hokey, but it also did not take itself too seriously, much like Deadpool. So yeah. I think that's why it was able to. I think the not taking yourself too seriously is liberating for these kind of comic book movies.
Certainly.
And
certainly.
This film definitely did that. I was kind of curious if they were going to have Jared Leto as the Joker in it, just because, that Harley Quinn incarnation's connected and forever tied to that version of Joker and that movie Joker. There's no way, unless you decided to shit the bed, there's no way you could tie that to Joaquin Phoenix's character.
No,
it's just not. I mean, there are obvious reasons why it wouldn't connect. They're taking place in different timelines and whatever. And apparently, Joker is the beginning of a new parallel franchise they're doing. That's called DC Black.
Huh.
And it's only going to be content more geared towards that direction. Dark, heavy, gritty, more of an indie film feel. I liked the Joker. I thought it was unfortunate that it had this hype trail behind it because the hype was so inflated. It is a good film. It is well made. It's beautifully performed. A masterpiece, stunning, brilliant, the greatest film of the decade, all these other kinds of. I hate it when something is being built as with the expectation of being a big dumb movie and isn't decidedly a big dumb movie. The only other thing it could be is Citizen Kane, right? Because it's occupying this space where the expectation is it's big and dumb. And it decides to become something other than that it must be Citizen Kane. Can it just be a great movie? and then give that director a little space and room to continue to look at a career where the best work is still ahead of him.
Wow. Yeah.
I think that would be a better approach. Anyway, I really like the contrast between our two lists. And it's interesting. It started out in the same exact spot with Inception, and then it started going in these other directions. I think it's also just the way my tastes have evolved over time. But I liked all the films that you liked as well.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really cool exercise. I don't want to get into the habit of this podcast being something you'd find on Collider or Screen Junkies or something else. I think anyone who wants to have that kind of thing where you're doing reviews and analyzing things, I think that's great, and I go to that stuff and I'm a consumer of that stuff. I don't know if I want to get into the habit of doing that on this show.
I certainly don't.
But I'm glad that we at least did this.
Yeah.
I think it's also informative just to see our own palates from an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah, because they differ.
They do differ, and I don't think that's a bad thing because we get to offer unique perspectives to the conversations we have about the things that we're interested in.
Certainly.
Yeah. So, that was a hearty, almost 1 hour recording.
Yeah.
What do you think about closing it out?
Yeah, let's close it out.
All right. We have a little outro here that we do. Hang on 1 second. Let me pull up my end of the script. This is still a work in progress podcast, so this is all going in the edit. I'm not cutting this out. 1 second.
Okay, all right.
Keep talking.
Okay.
Things, stuff.
Intro. So now we are at...
I am pulling up my
yours.
Stuff.
All right.
And what did I say?
Ernie starts outro.
All right. The Ronny and Ernie Show is a joint production of Triello Storytelling Company and the Bon Vivant. Our show is now available on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you like what you're hearing, then commenting, subscribing, and reviewing means that it only gets better. Go ahead,
Recipes, projects, anything we didn't have enough time to get into today's show will be up on our blogs. They're available at triello.org/blog and thebon-vivant.com.
And at each of our sites, you can also take a look at what we're currently up to and check out some of the amazingly talented people we collaborate with. And then in parentheticals, it says we sign off. How do we sign off? What do you want to do to sign off?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. I usually just say cheers.
What do you say? Yeah. What do you say when we get off the phone?
I
when
said,
we just
all
have
right.
a phone call.
Take care.
See
Ciao.
ya. All right. See you later.
Yeah. Ciao.
Okay. All right. Ready? We're going to do that for real now. That was the practice.
Okay.
That was deciding on the content. We know what we're going to say now.
Right.
That's the line.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Go for it.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.